with the Orca, I really like just having a flat surface down there. Sometimes if you have like an AR style rail or something on there, they tend to be rounded.
Yeah.
I just like having a flat surface to connect to, and just make my job a little bit easier when it comes to gaining stability.
What is up, everybody? Jim to my right, Mr. Corey Eliasson from Vortex Edge across from us right now. And today we're doing a little pro picks. We consider you a professional, by the way,
Thank
Corey.
you. I appreciate it.
A pro picks ultimate long range kit. And that's why we have all this kit. If you're watching on YouTube, we got a lot of kit in front of us. Like, I'd say a lot of kit, but not excessive kit.
No, we've had more on the table in the past, to be very honest.
I guarantee if I was trying to do something like this, I would have like more things.
Mark, there's absolutely no doubt that you would have way more things.
I'm not saying I'd use them.
Exactly. That's just it. Yeah, that's just it.
They'd get in the way. It'd
Half
be
of
perfect.
them would be new in box.
Corey, what's going on, man? You've shot some long range, yes?
Yeah, I've been doing it for a little while now. More recently in the competitive realm, but yeah, I've been shooting long range for over 15 years or so now.
Gotcha.
So.
Would you say, Corey, that your long-range kit has evolved over time?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And just the sport of long-range shooting has evolved in that time frame, even that short little bit of time. We've definitely learned a lot of things, a lot of developments, and kit and gear and practices change with it. So,
what just for kicks, like what would be something to contrast? Like when you first got into long-range shooting, something that you're like, oh yeah, this is something that we always did, and you're like, man, I never do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a big thing, and that's gathering hard data. So we used to shoot at 100, 200, 300, all the way up to 1,000, see where we're hitting on the target, record that data in an environment, and now we heavily rely on ballistic software. So almost universally, and then for some people, I'd probably say for majority people, I don't know for sure, but it's, more reliant on ballistic software, making sure I type in the right variables and using that information to do that.
I mean, what you're talking about there, and we've talked about it before, we commonly use the term dope, data on previous engagement, right? And
Rarely do you actually have a previous engagement.
Right. Now it's like it's crossed over. It's like used to describe, I guess, the same outcome, but you're definitely getting it in general, a digital way.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we could all sit from the comfort of our warm podcast studio here in Barneveld, Wisconsin, and essentially get our dope if we were shooting in Patagonia.
Yes.
Now, using software and local weather stations in Patagonia and all this other stuff.
I will say, though, and maybe this is a correct way to look at it, but we often also talk about like validating your dope. So you plug your variables in the ballistic calculator, you go to the range.
That's real.
Yeah. Maybe you send one at 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're like, okay, well, I'm actually recording that we'll say like, 1 mil low at X range. So then you actually would be using a previous engagement to fine tune your dope. But would you say, Corey, that the process is a little more streamlined now?
Definitely. Yeah, it's almost like back in the day. We never had GPSs in our car. People just had to figure out roads in the city and figure out where they're going. Now we can just plug an address in and get right to it. And
remember road names.
Yeah, but then, people don't really know the city sometimes when they...
Yeah.
I guarantee that I'm here right now with you guys because of GPS functionality. Whether it's in...
Yeah, you've been coming here for a couple of years, and I still think that if you didn't have GPS, you might not find it.
I can get here, yeah.
Okay.
That's about it, though. whether I'd still be lost in some city, I can't get out, or in the woods because it's not, my phone's not working. Nowadays, I use phone GPS.
Yeah.
I used to use.
Do you guys have? Do your guys' dads have that innate ability to be able to get from like here to anywhere? And they may not know the cities necessarily, but they know how to get anywhere in the country based off of just the numbered highways?
Oh, yeah. I can ask my dad how to get somewhere, and he's ripping off interstates that I need to take and things like that.
Oh, yeah. But and then like
So
randomly they'll be like,
that's,
oh, well, when you get to Nebraska, you're going to hit X, Y, Z, and that's going to be backed up, which not much in Nebraska. That's a bad example. But
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, yeah, when you get to this X, Y, Z, it's going to be backed up. So you're going to want to split off on it, whatever. And you're like, you've never been there. How do you?
Right.
Or you were there once. I don't know. But
Yeah, it's impressive. That's for sure.
I remember
change.
like going into the woods at elk hunting with my dad, and like he'd take like a compass reading before we'd go in. We'd be in the woods for hours, and I'd be like, "Man, I hope somebody knows where we're at right now because I don't." And we just, no, not me.
Yeah.
That was a fun tangent.
Yeah. So long range kit. Like I said, we got a bunch in front of us.
Yeah.
What let's maybe talk about long range shooting, what you've been up to lately and then how, it translates into what we see here.
Yeah, and like I said before, I just kind of recently got into competitive shooting, I would say in the last couple of years or so, and that's definitely influenced me to a degree, but I come from like a professional background with the long-range shooting, so just military sniper side. So, that's where I was kind of made and then, developed into what you see here. So I try to like kind of keep my head in both areas and thinking in both ways. And even with what you just said there, like there's not a lot on the table, so weight is kind of always on my mind too. And I think it is for a lot of people too. They don't want to be lugging, even if it is just a competition, they don't want to be lugging a huge heavy bag around with stuff that they're not going to use.
You just get one of them gear strollers.
Yeah, there's a lot of those running around. They don't look so dumb when you're kind of sweating and suffering and walking through.
Yeah. Do they not look dumb when you?
Okay, yeah, maybe a little.
As long as they're aware of it.
Yeah, I didn't even know they were a thing until about 5 years ago. So it's, okay.
I'm glad, and no offense to anybody that uses those things. Yeah. I'm glad you've resisted the temptation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good workout just carrying my bag for me. But so everything you see in front of you is pretty directed. I try to, I need all these things when I go to a competition, or I'm going to even go teach a class for long range shooting, or go recreationally, just go shoot long range. And I don't want any fluff. So everything here I'll probably use during that time when I go out at one point or another. And to me, it's all pretty important. So I try not to overspend and get gear. And especially in the competition realm, people let you use their gear. Quite often, very generous people. So you can kind of try out what you want, what's working for you, what you think you might like, and then, take a more directed approach to what you want to actually get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stinks to, spend, oftentimes a considerable amount of money on something and then find out like, oh, I didn't need that. Or, so that's cool to be able to do that.
Yeah. Corey, I think, is downplaying a little bit of probably what went into this because, he said it's not a lot of stuff and he's kind of newer, relatively speaking, into the competition scene. But everything I've ever seen Corey do has been meticulously calculated and extremely thought out. So that's why I'm eager to see what he's got going on here. So we kind of have everything from, for those who aren't watching on YouTube, we have everything from the firearm itself. He's got his rifle, which I'm sure he'll talk about, sitting on a tripod. He's got some doodads on the on that, and then we've got everything from the ammo to the bags to the spotter, and some other accessories, magazines, and so on. So
also, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see something conspicuously standing out on Corey's rifle, and I love that you glossed over it as a doodad, Jim. So it's a little yeah,
Yeah.
What do we start with? Everybody wants to start with the gun.
We should start
probably.
I feel like
that's where
everything kind of flows out of there.
Yeah.
It's first,
and it's kind of front and center too. So,
it is.
Yeah, might as well. So just right off the bat with the rifle, I like stocks over chassis. I don't hate chassis. Like I'll probably end up shooting one day and have one on my gun that I use more often. But for now, I like stocks. There's just less screws and stuff to come loose. So I have the Manners Elite T6 Alpha on this one, adjustable butt pad and adjustable cheek weld so I can fit my body to the gun. Super important for long range shooting. We need to be able to fit the gun to us. And if I don't have those things, then I'm basically limited to just trying to fine tune where I put my scope on my rifle and get the appropriate sight alignment. And, sometimes you can only get so refined with that. And you might be fighting your equipment to a degree. And long range shooters, we don't want to deal with that. We just want to be able to fit our equipment to us so that everything is right there. So that's what I got as far as the stock goes, the Manners T6 Alpha. And then action is, I had this gun built from GA Precision. This is a GA Precision Templar V2, built off of the Defiance Ruckus action. So essentially the Defiance Ruckus action. Chambered in 6mm Creedmoor. So the barrel is a proof, and it's just their competition contour. Really like that barrel, really heavy barrel, adds a lot of beef to the gun. I like that a lot. 26-inch barrel. And then on the muzzle brake, I got the Area 419 Hellfire. It's not the match. If I had to get it again, I probably would get the match and get an extra port up here just to help a little bit with recoil mitigation. And then I topped it with the Gen 2 4.5 to 27 in mil.
Yep.
So, and then what everybody's probably wondering about on top is the Impact 4000 rail-mounted laser rangefinder, which rail-mounted, obviously, one of the primary things people are going to do is mount this on the rifle, like you guys see here, either in this configuration on the top or in one of the side profiles, either on the left or the right. So
yeah, you've got it in, I'd say, probably the most advantageous spot there on top of the scope.
Yep, and even if you were to get behind this rifle and you're looking through the optic, you literally just have to kind of glance up, and all the information is right there. You really don't have to move your head off the rifle at all in that case. So
I will say it's the Impact 4000 rail-mounted ballistic laser rangefinder.
Oh, thank you.
Which I feel like the B.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
That's an important detail. And on the Vortex Nation podcast, this is the debut. We're getting
is? Yeah. Oh, not the other one that we did?
I think we did one, but I think this is before that.
Oh, this is before that?
MC Ryan. Okay, I am correct.
You are correct. That is cool.
Wow. Yeah. A lot of firsts here,
It's a big deal. Okay, I didn't realize that when I just glossed over it as a doodad.
Yeah.
My mistake. Lots of cool stuff going on there. How much do you want to go into it on there? Because we could really dive in. Do we want
to? Let's just give a little bit of a who, what, where, when, why on it. We're gonna have coming out a little bit after, like a more detailed, hyper focused. Like, this is a podcast about the Impact 4000. But give us a quick rundown on that, Corey.
Okay. So basically, what that is doing is making some of this stuff here in front of us a little redundant. So it's a laser rangefinder finder mounted on my rifle. And the laser that actually ranges targets is zeroed to my point of aim, point of impact, where I'm zeroed at on the gun, which is 100 yards. So when my turret's up here are on 0, all I have to do is put my reticle on whatever target I want to engage, hit the fire button on my laser rangefinder, and then all my ballistic information pops up for me. It has an angle cosine indicator, so it's compensating for that, and it gives me my elevation. And I can also put in prevailing winds, and it'll give me a wind correction on top of that. So I laze my target, whichever distance it's at. It tells me my elevation, and I can either hold in my reticle if I have that capability, or I can just dial it right on the scope and engage that target. Mm-hmm. So it's basically, it's taken out a lot of legwork out of the long-range shooting game, and I think it's probably making it a lot more accessible to people that just know nothing on the surface. As long as they can follow the directions and mount this properly on the rifle and zero it, they can get there that much quicker.
Right.
So,
thing's a standalone unit. It's got environmental sensors on board. Like you said, you can capture the azimuth of the wind in there. It's got a compass. You can dictate to the rangefinder which way the wind is coming from, and then also the scale or the velocity of that wind. And then it will remember that as you're looking around. It connects up via Bluetooth to the Geoballistics app, and there's some really cool features there. It can connect up to your Kestrels and ballistic watches, all kinds of other Bluetooth devices. Pretty sweet thing. Doesn't have to connect to any of those things to function, but
right.
pretty pretty cool.
Incredibly durable, incredibly repeatable.
Very important.
Pinpoint ranging accuracy when you're able to use the rifle scope as what you're viewing and that reticle to get that range.
And that's a huge advantage to having that as opposed to if you have a handheld, stability is a factor, and then having a refined point of aim in order to reach your target and range the proper one. It's super easy with this thing. Like it's really easy to pick out a refined point, range it, and my confidence level on, that's actually my range to target is much higher with something like that on there for all the reasons you just kind of described. Along with that, though, I think it also can double to a degree as a heads-up display. So people have the heads-up display for Kestrel on the side of their rifle, basically tell them their elevation for certain targets, or they'll have something like this with their target array written out on there. So I can build a range card on that and have those ranges and the targets all laid out, ready to go if I have a multiple target engagement array I need to navigate. So super handy in that way too.
You can goof with it using the directional pad on top of it, and then there's also a remote. You can't see it on camera right now because Corey's got it in a strategic location bungeed to the back of his stock. There's all kinds of, there's Picatinny rail, key mod, M-lock attachments that come in the box for this remote, so you can attach it literally anywhere on the gun, or you can even do hook and loop, all that sort of thing, and you can control it from that directional pad on the remote as well. So that's pretty slick. Minimizes a lot of movement out there. I mean, if you're hunting or stuff like that, minimizes a ton of movement. You're just one confined unit. You got everything you need, just bam, right there.
You're kind of during that, ranging, getting your ballistic data, you get to stay in the gun kind of the whole time. You need to.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep, and it's taking that step out of it too, instead of, having to find a target, laze it, and then get set up and ready to shoot. If I'm the shooter, it's taking that out, and I can just do that from my gun, like you said, and be on target that much quicker. So huge advantage as far as that goes.
And I wouldn't say it negates, handheld. Like
No,
there's
not
there's
at all.
gonna be times where I use that system, and then there's gonna be a lot of times where I still use, a Razor GB or something like that. It's just gonna.
Sometimes it's easier just to point a handheld unit at something and range it instead of pointing your whole gun that way.
Right.
So that's just how it is. That was a pretty good rundown on that bad boy.
I like it.
Yeah.
Back to the gun, though.
Yeah.
So, Corey, you have been bitten by the 6 Creedmoor bug.
Yeah.
And you've been shooting that now for how long, would you say?
A year and a half or
Year
so.
and a half or
I
so?
think it is. Yep.
Year and a half later, year and a half review. Not one of those gun reviews where some guy pulls it out of the box and shoots like 100 rounds and he gives his immediate reaction to it on a YouTube video.
It went bang. It's the best.
It went bang. I love it. Yeah, everybody should buy one. No, year and a half review of a guy who shot a lot of rounds down the pipe of six Creedmoor. What do you think?
I like it. I think it's a great cartridge for long-range shooters for several reasons. It is a fast round, so I'm pushing 108 grain ELDMs at about 29.90 or so. Basically what that means for me as a shooter is, as a long-range shooter, is it's helping to make my job a little bit easier. Obviously, I'm still doing a lot of work, and there's a lot of skill involved in reading the environment, but like wind deflection is going to be to a lesser degree with this faster cartridge. And then also my elevation, I think at 1,000, I'm at about 7.7 mils up.
Wow.
Really? Something like that. Yeah, at 1,000 yards.
That's
So really flat trajectory.
That's flatter than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
that actually, yeah.
And basically it's just getting to the target quicker than some of the other cartridges that we shoot. Just like I said before, making my job easier as a long-range shooter. Barrel burnout is a thing. So you're definitely going to be getting through, depending on the frequency people shoot, it will burn your barrels out. I think it's anywhere from 800 to like 1,600 rounds or so, just depending on an array of variables. But just with that faster bullet, it's going to burn those out quicker. So that's definitely a thing. This is my second barrel on this gun so far, and I'm over halfway through it, I'm sure, at this point now.
So I know like 6 millimeters is a popular thing for competition shooters nowadays, but I've seen 6 Creedmoor out there, like plenty. But it seems like some of the, your 6GTs and your 6
Arcs.
BR and even the 6 Arc is kind of a newer one.
Yeah.
But like some of those more really cutesy little 6mm cartridges are pretty popular amongst those guys. Is there a reason you didn't go with one of those? You went with was it like ease of finding them, or
it was some of that. It just seemed like the Ferrari of the 6mm. It was really fast. I was kind of attracted to it in that manner. And then ammunition availability was kind of weighing in on it to a degree. But I don't think I'll stick with it forever. I really like it, and I think there's a reason why quite a few guys like to shoot the 6 Creed. But maybe I'll do the Dasher for a year and a half and come back and give my review on that and get some time on that. But I think a lot of it was just it seemed like the Ferrari of the 6mm, and that kind of really pulled me to it. And I was looking at the ballistics, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with this one.
Nice.
So
let me see one of them things, Jim. I was looking at one earlier, but it is
like there's a lot of 6mm cartridges that are, like I said, cute.
Yeah.
And this one less so. Like this one looks more like a cartridge. I don't know. It doesn't look like a little toy.
I mean, it's built to do some work though, but it's sleek, man.
And I think you can definitely tell the difference with the casings if you're comparing like the Dasher and the Creedmoor. You can definitely tell the difference. So I think you have to work a little bit harder for recoil management potentially with this, just because it's shooting a little faster. And maybe the recoil is a little less forgiving or more forgiving with the Dashers and the GT. Barrel life's going to be a little longer with those two, so I think that pulls a lot of people over if they're not going through barrels quite as rapidly. And I think that's a huge selling point. And then just the easy button for like reloading and things like that. So
you've got not specifically cartridge related, but related to the firearm itself. You've got a pretty nice looking ARCA setup on the bottom of that stock.
Yeah.
And underneath it is the radium carbon tripod, from what I can tell, with the ball head.
Yep.
How often do you find yourself shooting off of the tripod? Is there a learning curve to shooting off a tripod? Anything like it seems to be a core component of the gun here. I know you can also get, of course, ARCA setups for. Look at this. You get an ARCA setup for one of your bags. You can get ARCA setups for bipods and stuff too. But you got the tripod here, and
yeah. So it's really handy having the ARCA rail. I actually had to take some paddle bits and drill into the stock and attach that myself. But I put it on there just for this reason. I can snap into a tripod, and like you said, there's some attachments. My bipods are ARCA, and I can just put them right on there, and it gives me an array of areas where I can put my bipods. If I want to, run them in a little closer to my mag well, I can do that. If maybe I have a really small surface, I want to use my bipods and have my rear bag on there too, and I don't have, a massive place to do that. It gives me options as far as that goes. Like you said, I can snap into the tripod. I don't find myself doing that very often. In fact, if I have to shoot off a tripod and it's practical to do so, I usually throw a bag up there, and that seems to get me a lot more stable and where I need to be. And attached to the ARCA, I had the barricade stop back there too, so just that kind of chunk of metal sticking down, which is kind of a small detail and everything, but super helpful in a lot of cases when I'm shooting off barricades or just in these different positions, and I can push forward to that barricade stop and lock in and do what I need to do.
Is that stop an additional piece clamped onto the ARCA, or is that integrated into that entire ARCA rail?
Yeah, so that's integrated into it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's all one piece right there.
Gotcha.
You can get.
I thought it was.
You can get ARCAs without those though too.
Yeah.
Where it's just flat. I wanted the barricade stop for that reason. Just because when we push up into that magazine, like if I was to lock into a barricade and the magazine kind of gets some tension, when I go to reload, I could approach some issues. Maybe I can't get that next round into the chamber or something like that. I'll have to loosen up and then I can load. You know, it's a possibility of something like that happening, and I just wanted to avoid it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it seems also like just like a nice contact point to get some, you know, purchase as you push into the.
I really like with the Orca. I really like just having a flat surface down there. Sometimes if you have like an AR style rail or something on there, they tend to be rounded.
Yeah.
I just like having a flat surface to connect to, and just make my job a little bit easier when it comes to gaining stability. So, but the tripod too is extremely useful. The Carbon Radiant is my go-to. Really beefy. I use it for both supporting the rifle and, oddly enough, I use it way more for a rear support when I'm shooting off of barricades, which is a handy little trick that a lot of competitive shooters know, and maybe not a lot of other, you know, just recreational shooters are aware of.
Yeah.
But
can you describe how like that situation where you're doing that?
Yeah. So the way I would do it, you know, the way you can do it, you know, say you have a cattle gate or something that you have to shoot off of, and it's a little unstable. So you know you're gonna have to work really hard to get stable off of it. You can put your bag up there on the cattle gate. Have your tripod run all the way out, so max the legs all the way out, so it's as tall as it can be. And then you put your gun on the bag on the cattle gate, and then you're basically pinching the tripod against the buttstock of your rifle against the tripod, and you swim into it, and you know the tripod leg would be going in the center here, and it's extremely stable position.
Oh, you don't rest the buttstock on the top of the tripod. You actually just have the tripod all the way. It's like a staff.
Yeah.
You just sort of just use it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
I actually
idea.
don't like it with the bag on top of the tripod. I like to just pinch it against the leg, and then if I need to change positions, it's that much quicker to just walk down the leg and use it in whatever height I want to.
Especially if you're on like one of those. What is it? A game? They call it not a game changer.
Oh, the PRS barricade.
PRS barricade. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're changing the height constantly. It'd be such a pain if you had to be messing with the legs.
Yeah, you can. I find that technique to be most useful with a cattle gate if it's super unstable and you got to shoot from all those rungs. You know, one spot. Really handy to have that. So,
Good idea.
Yeah, a tripod can be extremely useful in several different ways.
You mentioned the bag, so we should probably talk about that a little bit. I feel like the one that you have there is like the one that I just see all the time.
Yeah, I use it for everything. As you can tell, it's a pretty well-worn bag. But this is the Weebad, Tater Tot. It's the heavy fill, so it's pretty heavy, and I like that because it settles a lot easier, and it doesn't want to like fall off of things. Whereas maybe the lighter side type stuff, maybe you just have to really make sure you get it where you want it. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of slipping off, or it could. So the heavy fill is really important, and bags are just important in general because we want hard on soft contact, and that's something you see with newer shooters to long range, particularly in the competition realm. Like maybe they don't think to bring something like this, and if they don't have this, it's kind of dangerous actually if they don't have this, because you could be slipping off of barricades, moving around, and be a little unstable in that aspect. So if there are newer shooters, we'll definitely like let them borrow bags, and hopefully that helps them out a little bit, and we gain a lot of stability just by using this. So extremely useful.
The lima bean shaped bag profile is, I mean, there's no two ways about it. Somehow
that's
that
how
profile,
it's listed on the website, Jim.
Lima bean bag. Yeah. Somehow that bag works on everything.
Yeah.
Flat surfaces, round surfaces, cattle gates, pieces of wood, rooftops, just the ground, tables.
Right.
There's a way to make it work for everything. You want a little bit of rise, you want a lot of rise, you want, because you can switch what way you have it laid down on whatever surface you're on. It's so versatile. Yeah,
I really like this shape, and I know a lot of guys are kind of floating towards like the game changer style, which is just a different type, but this has really grown on me. Just the way to use it. Usually the way I gauge it is if I have about a 2x4 with barricade, I'll kind of lay it down in the intuitive style to where I get, a decent flat surface to shoot off of. And if I have something really thin that I need to shoot off of, say like I had a piece of metal and I just had to shoot off this surface, you're just flipping it upside down and then getting this bag to to lay flat for you, and then I got this entire area where I can connect my gun to it, and that just equates to stability for me. Or same thing, like if I had to shoot off this table and I just had to use a bag for a front support, just laying it sideways and then getting all of this to work for me. That makes a huge difference. Just being able to manipulate the bag and knowing how you're going to do it, you can get a lot of stability and just more hits on target just by knowing what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like, shooting in general, and I'd say maybe in particular long-range shooting, it's like stability. Like, it just, so much of the gear is geared towards achieving that.
Right. Yeah, it's a big part of it, for sure.
Yeah. I'm very curious about this one, though, Corey, because you have 2 bags as part of your long-range kit, and one of them is actually a bag that's connected to a giant aluminum Arca rail connector piece. So I would imagine that you connect this entire thing mechanically to that bottom Arca rail on your rifle, right?
Yep.
So when is the time that this is more advantageous than that? Or are they used in tandem ever? Like what's going on with this thing?
So usually I don't like to use that unless if I have to manage like a bunch of different things. Like if I'm going to use a tripod rear support, I don't want to have to move my bag, then move the gun, and then move my tripod, and then shoot, and then do all 3 of those things over again. If I can connect that straight to my gun, then I can just manage my gun and then the tripod as a rear support. So I'm just managing 2 things, and I'm that much quicker by doing that. So I find that's the time when that's most useful. Or, if I'm in an area where I'm going to use this as a rear support, but I still want a bag for front support, I'll use that kind of like with the tripod, but instead of a tripod rear support, I'm using a bag. So instead of managing 2 different bags and moving those around, I just have my gun in another bag. So that's when that's most useful, for sure. I'm not a big fan of just, if there's a stable enough barricade, I'm not a big fan of just attaching that to my gun and just using that. The perception is that it's quicker, but if the bag in that setup isn't really helping you gain the stability that you want, I don't think it's that much quicker. I think, just having a bag and setting it and setting your gun and moving along, just focusing on stability. For me, that's been the way to go so far.
Okay.
We'll see if that changes.
Nice.
What's next?
So
there's a lot. Yeah.
So some of this other stuff,
administrative type things here.
Yeah. So these are pretty important, actually, or they were until I had that on my gun. So, but this is just something I would attach to my optic. And then I could use this and write a bunch of different ranges and my dope on there and maybe wind calls and things like that.
What is that there?
So this is the Coltac cheat sheet. So,
okay.
It's like a credit card sized whiteboard.
Yep. And what it is I would just put this on the gun so that this faces towards me, something like that. And then this card would be facing my face. It's not completely irrelevant just because the impact's out here, but I would just go through and, if I had an array of targets I needed to navigate, write all the information I needed on there. And then I could reference that if I needed to, like if I had 7 targets to engage and I wanted to dial for them or hold for them. And I can't remember all that. Just having it on a card in front of my face is super handy.
Like you'd have like 1 through 7 and then like, whatever, 3.2 mils,
yep.
5.5 mils, whatever.
Yep. And then just put in a 0 where I'm dialing on for whatever target. And these are really handy to use with some painter's tape or just this masking tape. Just ripping some of this off and putting it on there, writing on that. So I'm not fighting with trying to scrape off like permanent marker off this card. Which is extremely hard to do, or if you're using kind of like the quick erase stuff, that'll smudge really quick, and it's really easy to smudge and just it's gone. So really handy to have some of the tape there. And this is kind of just the same thing, only it goes on my wrist here, so like a quarterback sleeve. So it'll just go on there, and I have all my information right here to reference if I'm in the prone or whatever I'm doing, shooting off a barricade. I have all that information for me right here. So, and this would be something that maybe I'd label out 300 all the way out to maybe 800 or 900, have all my dope and maybe wind brackets on here that I could reference when I want to engage certain targets. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, a little redundant with that. I can build a range card in there, and then I can have all that information to scroll through and things to access, and quick and easy. But there's definitely going to be a place for these too, when simplicity and just they want to do it now type thing is wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So other things on top of the tripod, I got the baby razor. So the 13 to 37, which I just used it at the last long range course, and I really like this thing. This is a really awesome spotting scope.
Corey, there's bigger ones.
Yeah,
More
I know.
magnification.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Well, even that one's bigger. It's a 13 to 39.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the old one. It is.
Yeah.
But Mark, how do you feel about that?
I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you coming around?
To the baby razor?
Not to the baby razor, but just to maybe sometimes less is more.
Oh yeah, like I mean, honestly, for the hunts that I go on, I think, and what I'm interested in doing, like that's like the spotter for me.
It's such an
Like,
awesome,
I'd say
awesome spotter.
if I'm hunting where there's likely like a lot of spotting where we're not like too far from a vehicle, or maybe you're not packing in like exceptionally far. Yeah, dude, why not?
Yeah.
Why not have a little more horsepower? But anytime where it's really going to my backpack for a significant amount of time, that's going to be the one I carry with me.
Yeah.
Yep. And having the variable power magnification is super helpful with trying to acquire targets. Just zooming out, and I can see exactly where I need to go and get on target that much quicker. So I really like that. And then I got just some magazine pouches here with the magazines I had, and then the Kestrel, which is also a little bit redundant. So the Impact actually has internal environmentals, so onboard environmentals with that, so I can update the environment at my location just based off of that. The only thing this has on top of that is the being able to read the wind at my location. Which the weather flows also have that too. So you can get a little weather flow meter and get the wind at your location and connect that to it. So, but yeah. So, and that's basically kind of doing what this was doing. With geoballistics, I can build gun profiles in there, change those variables if I need to, add several different gun profiles in there and pick which ones I want to use at certain times. So super handy as far as that goes.
Absolutely. It's a good setup. I mean, on top of that, you got the torque wrench here on the table, which is, another one of those administrative things that's always good to have on hand. I think having one of those nearby at any given point is crucial, because you never know when you're going to have to fiddle around with something on your setup. It's not always just the scope. It could be anything on the gun. There's lots of different little fasteners on your firearm, action screws, and all kinds of other little things like that may need to be torqued to a specific torque, inch-pound torque rating. But even still, being able to goof with your rings if you ever have to, reset up your scope for whatever reason. Maybe you decided the eye relief just isn't right. I got to move it forward. If you don't have one of these on hand, then you're guessing on the inch-pound torque rating that you're putting on it, and why guess on that?
Yeah, and I bring that thing along too, more for the reason that if I bring it, I won't need it. So far so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's always in my pack anywhere I go as far as long range shooting goes. So.
Here, I got these over here. I got your mags in here, and then you got them in some pouches there.
Yeah.
How are you carrying those with you then?
So that's, I'll keep those in the pouches, and then I'll, as I'm shooting through stages or whatever I'm doing, I'm making sure to reload them. And when they're in the pouches, I know they're reloaded. And this one's on my hip. So it's just a G-code mag holster. And this one's on my hip. And then usually after I shoot through a certain stage, maybe I'll have a couple rounds left in here. I always make sure to go back and reload this before it goes back into my mag pouch, because I've seen a ton of people kind of insert the magazine, get ready to shoot, and then 2 rounds later they're unloading and putting a flag in because they didn't have enough ammunition.
Yeah.
So processes are pretty important to me in the way I do things. But this is just, I keep this on my hip, right here. And very rarely do I need more than one magazine, but if I do, I can switch out and just attach this to my belt. And then I have 2 mags on me. I just don't like to walk around with 2 all day, a lot of weight on my hips. And I'd rather just keep it in my bag unless I need it. And then I have that option here. So I like having the 2 mag holster and 1 mag holster option.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha.
yeah.
We talked a little bit about what you're putting in those mags, but you've got your bullet or your cartridge holder there, which it looks like you've customized the top lid a little bit.
Yeah, I forgot about
Yeah. So I did do that, and I found I just had that before without the foam. I just cut out some foam and put it in the cap right there. And I found, particularly in the competition setting, I'm shooting, or even when I'm teaching classes, shooting through the bullets and putting the empty casings in here. If I just close the lid and throw that in my pack, it's just going to be a mess of empty casings shoveled everywhere. And just with that little bit of foam in there, when I go to close it, even if there's empty casings turned upside down in here, they sit a little lower. I can just close it up, and they're not going to start falling out of the slots and moving all over the place. And then I'm sitting there putting them back in, every 15 minutes or whatever it is.
That's
it protects your
that's a good
loaded
tip.
ones from just getting jostled around the whole time they're in there too, right?
Yeah. So there's I like it a lot. I like doing that, and I haven't saw any downfalls to it so far.
I can't see why there would be.
Yeah.
I mean, when I looked at it, my first instinct was it reminded me of some of the cases or little boxes you get precision 22 ammo in, and they go out of their way so incredibly much to protect the bullet from getting, hit and impacted, which would then potentially, whether it's going to, cock it up with how it's set into the case or, push it down in the case a little further or something like that, mess with it. But, they've loaded it to a very exacting standard and they want to keep it that way. So that was where my mind went. And this is just an easy, cheap solution.
Yep. And especially some people get very particular about their bullets and, as far as trimming them goes and making sure they stay in pristine condition until we're ready to fire. So it's just an extra layer of protection.
Yeah.
So
talk about that little Weehaw tool that you got there.
Yeah, I actually really like this thing a lot because, I always have the torque wrench, and not until just recently I got this, and I have just some smaller Allen keys on here, and then some of the Torx bits as well. And I just found if I had to, mess around with my set screws for my zero stop or a student's set screws, or just somebody needed a smaller bit like this, I never had one on hand.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes up no space. It's very easy just to put, one of these bits in there. And then I have, this Allen key to adjust a zero stop or something like that, or just some small screw. Who knows what it can be. But I have the option there too, and it's not inconvenient to carry it around, and it's actually very useful. I've needed this thing quite a few times, and I never would have thought I would.
It's so nice having little hex bits and Torx bits and stuff like that on hand. And for those who are wondering, and if you looked for something like this in the past, I've been in the situation before where I'm aware that there's a tool that I need and that I'm going to use it a lot, and I want to get a nice one. But you look it up on Amazon or wherever you're looking, you Google it, and inevitably what pops up is a bunch of the cheap hardware store ones that really aren't that great. And you're like, where are the nice ones? What's the nice brand? What are the professionals using?
Yeah.
Weehaw is a brand that makes everything they make is exceptional, and they make a lot of tools for little things.
Yeah.
All kinds of little screwdrivers and hex drivers and stuff like that. And I'd never seen this one until you just put it on the table here today. And this is brilliant because
it's very lightweight.
You have
there's nothing to it.
Many bits, which equal so many different drivers in one package that's the size of
a large,
slightly
pen.
Oversized pen.
Yeah.
And that's just so cool. And it's because of the brand that it is, it's not chintzy.
Right.
It's nice.
Yep.
So this is super cool. I love the way they make stuff. It's very nice.
Yep.
The words on it aren't even in English. Oh wait, one of them is. Straight out of Germany.
Then on top of that, I just have the Leatherman.
Reminds me of
another useful
the
tool.
ShamWow. They make good stuff.
Oh, yeah, the Germans. Yeah, they're making good stuff. Yeah. And then you got a Leatherman.
Yeah.
Very useful. Good to have on hand.
Oh, sure.
Anything that's not addressed by the stuff that's on the table, that thing always picks up the slack. And yeah.
I mean, I look at this and it's like very, very clean, very intentional, very well thought out.
Yeah. I don't like clutter.
Like purposeful. Everything's purposeful here.
If I go to the range a couple times and I'm like, I haven't used these 3 things like ever, and I can't like kind of think of a time when I would use them, aside from like torque wrenches or things like that. I just don't like fluff. I like, there to be a purpose for something to be in my pack. A reason.
But what if you need it someday? You might need it someday.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Easy.
I'm not a hoarder.
Down boy. Down boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got your, the only 2 things I can think on the table, one of them I know we didn't mention, you got your Ear Pro.
Yeah.
Got to have Ear Pro.
Yep.
The other one, though, and I'm curious, because thinking back, I can't remember if we mentioned this or not, but I could see how absolutely still want to have it for your particular application, like with competition, maybe not as much, but you got a handheld rangefinder.
Mm-hmm.
You got one of the Razor, it's the GB model, the 4000 GP.
Yep, the GB.
So having one of those on hand, I could see you're in a hunting scenario, you're at a maybe even a sniper competition, you're something like that. And it may be nice to, well, in many cases, it's nice to be able to range something, see how far away it is, get some information without having to point your gun over there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, if also you're in a pretty set up environment, like many competitions can be, not all, but many can be, then having a setup like just the Impact, it may be redundant to have the handheld on you. But, for an all-purpose general long-range kit, not a bad idea to have a handheld on you.
No, definitely not. And I could build range cards with GB on the phone too, and I can send the targets that I want to shoot to that application with this. Just kind of lazing them out and build them out that way.
I would say of note, Corey has an Arca plate on the bottom of his rangefinder right now, which that's simple, just screwed into the insert that's on the rangefinder. That's
yep.
How have you been? You just been putting that on the tripod just to get steady ranges?
And I'll have that in my pack too. And if there's a target in question, I'll try to throw that on the tripod. Just get as much stability as I can and range the area or the target, and just make sure everything's solid and it's the range I think it's at.
Mm-hmm. Would that be like you're at a competition and it says, "Oh, this target says that it's 702 or whatever," and you're like, or maybe you even have seen people shooting it, and you're just like, I want to confirm that that's 702, or like, is it that or something?
Yeah,
different?
maybe that could be an instance, because there are questions like that at times. But anything range to target is extremely important for long range shooters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and depending on what distance you're at, if you're off by a little bit, it can be a lot.
Yeah.
So,
is there anything that you have been ogling to add to your long range kit? I mean, obviously you have a pretty new addition here with the Impact. Pretty sweet. Probably going to change things up for you a little bit with how you do stuff and what you're able to do. But, I mean, you say you like to keep things simple and no fluff. I think that's great. And it looks like you've accomplished that pretty well here, because I've seen a lot of people at competitions in the past carrying around many, many times this much stuff. But you see yourself making any changes at all?
I don't know. I was considering one of those carts until you guys were making fun of them before we started.
Well,
but
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Part of me feels bad, and the other part of me feels like we saved you.
Yeah, no, I wasn't gonna get one of those. At the time, no. It needs to be very compelling for me to add to this.
Yeah.
Because it's just weight, and I have to carry it around. So it has to be. There has to be a very particular reason I would do that. I would say.
What do you like to carry it in when you're like at the range or?
So I have either a Kelty Red Wing bag, just kind of like a normal type backpack made for traveling and stuff, which is extremely useful. Or I have one of those 511 sling bags if I want to go like smaller profile and just use that. But as far as like adding to this, I would say I would probably trade this bag out and put something else on here.
This is the Arca mounted bag.
Yep. So I would take this bag off and I would put something closer to what this is. Or we could even get like full size kind of game changer style bags and put it on there.
Okay, because right now it's a smaller, thinner bag that's attached to this Arca plate thing.
Yep.
And you can actually switch out the bag that's mounted to that. That's not kind of like one stuck.
Yeah,
unit.
so I can just take this thing off and.
Oh,
So
look at that.
that's
Oh, yeah,
the
there you
bag, and then this is the rail changer from Area 419. So yeah, I can either put this on my gun and just leave it on there like that, or obviously attach a bag to it. So I was thinking about trading that bag out for something a little larger. I'm not in love with the way that sits on barricades at times. So that's the only thing I'm kind of looking at right now as far as that goes.
How do you feel about the weight on your gun? Like, just speaking of larger bags and attaching to your gun, I'm thinking like, okay, it's going to put a lot of weight on there, and some people are jonesing to add as much weight as possible. You have gone with, you got a big old competition profile barrel on this thing.
Yep.
That's great. You got a Razor 4F27 on it with an impact, and all that stuff. But then you've got, is this carbon?
Yeah, it's the Manners Elite T6 Alpha. So
It's a beautiful looking stock. I can see how like I would love to shoot with it. But are you the only one in a competition running stock?
No, there's a lot of guys that run the foundation stocks. There are Manners around out there too. A lot of chassis for sure.
Yeah.
But I really just like the way a stock feels. As far as the weight of that goes, that was my original issue with this gun. Is when I had it built, I realized I went a little on the light side, and then changing the barrel out, I got the competition contour from Proof, and that really beefed it up more so than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And now I'm liking where I'm at, but I still have a little issue with my weight, and I wish I was a little heavier than where it's at now. If I could throw another couple pounds on there, I probably would be.
Overall, or in certain spots, are you like a little back heavy, front heavy? Because I know balance is really important.
Yeah, balance is important. I think I'm pretty well balanced right now where I'm at. And if I was going to add weight to it, it'd be pretty tough on the stock, but it would be more towards the front of the mag wall. Try to get in that area, which I really don't have that option with this setup here. Which is another point for chassis system. Maybe I'll try one of those out in the future, but I have more adjustability and can just move those weights around to wherever I want. So that's a big plus for those.
I think the stock is awesome. Like the gun is it's a awesome looking rig.
Yeah, I like it too, and I like the way the stocks look and they feel. And
I like those Manor stocks a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with everything so far. I haven't found anything where I'm kind of looking as a shortfall so far. And I'm out shooting quite often with students and ourselves as instructors and with competitive people on sometimes, the law enforcement side of stuff. So
yeah,
I think, so far I like where I'm at. But I feel like that's going to change as much as we changed in the last 15 years. I'm sure something will come out that'll compel people to add something to it.
Ray guns.
Someday.
Yeah.
You just wait.
No, I like it, Corey. I mean, I appreciate you running through that stuff and everything you went through. It's like, yep, that makes sense. That checks box, either A box or boxes A, B, and C, and you can just see how the system fits together nicely.
Right. And I'm sure it looks different for everybody. Everyone's got their own application and does different things and even, approaches things differently. So, I'm sure that there's definitely different setups out there. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't bring up one thing. There's bubble level on your rifle scope.
Oh yeah, I kind of breezed over that too.
Do you use it a lot though?
I do. Yeah.
It's funny, Jim. So I never saw it either because every time I would look at the scope, I'd go straight to the impact.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, hello. The bubble level used to be the really outstanding thing you'd see on people's rifle scopes, and now it's the big rangefinder thing. So
the doodad, Jim.
The doodad, if you will, as it were. So bubble level, why do you use that?
So we put a video out actually not too long ago down at Edge, kind of demonstrating the reason that we put those on the guns. And basically it can equate to some slight vertical and then horizontal deviation downrange if we're shooting far enough, and if we're trying to shoot at a small enough target, we can just miss it altogether. And sometimes it can be perceived as a windage error at times, like, oh, I missed that target because of the wind, when maybe you were just canted. And you can't perceive it, and our human eye has about 3 degrees of error, so we can only see up to about 3 degrees of error and can't. So just you looking at the reticle and making sure it's straight up and down from what you perceive, there's potential for there to be about 3 degrees in error. And we don't want any error. Long range shooting is hard enough, so if we can get that right and send our shot downrange without having to worry about some horizontal deviation, and potentially missing our target or just stacking errors on top of each other, that would be great. So that's, bubble level is pretty important for a lot of this.
And you've got the rifle scope leveled when you mount it to the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bubble level is leveled to, do you just level that off of the
rifle
reticle?
Scope. Yep.
Rifle scope's reticle then?
Yep. So I'll level the scope to the gun, and then I level my bubble level to the scope. So everything's kind of co-witnessed, because that's what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to level my sights, and I want my bubble level to be co-witness to that. So yeah, really important. Yeah, the video did a good job of demonstrating it. It was very extreme, but we were only at about 500 yards. We were shooting at like an IPSC, a size target, the size of me at 500 yards. Just by canting the rifle extremely, we're getting just complete misses off target. That's an extreme case, but there's still error there, even when it's not extreme.
Where'd you say that video was? Was it on Instagram?
Yeah, I think we did put it on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
On the Vortex Edge page?
Yeah, about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, something like that.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Good deal. Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Yeah, thanks for running us through that. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hopefully you learned stuff on this. I know I did. And what's your long-range kit look like? Is there anything that Corey needs to add, that he needs to be looking at? He's going to be probably skeptical of it at first.
I'm sure there's something.
At a minimum.
Yeah.
But
I'll read those answers. I'll see. I'm pretty sure there is something I'm missing.
We'll see if we. That's the challenge. Can we get Corey to add something to a streamlined kit? All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye. There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.